I'm Dale Corvino, he, him. I'm an Italian-American man with some salt and pepper hair on my head and face, more salt. I'm wearing a black t-shirt, and behind me is a photo of Marilyn Monroe and two small children, my mother and my cousin. Hi, Mom. This is a reading from a memoir in progress, first chapter. The title of the first chapter is 1984, Sugar Daddy. I met him one bright afternoon on Fifth Avenue. I'd gotten into the habit of walking home after my architecture studio classes at the Cooper Union. These were solitary hikes from downtown's punk bohemia to the orderly domain of wealth and aspiration uptown. I'd usually follow Broadway as a track to diagonal against Manhattan's grid. That day, I walked up the East Side. I was fantasizing about that gruff man who jostled me while maneuvering a hand truck stacked high with boxes, his sturdy build, his sweaty brow. I'd barely made out the insults he barked at me. I was fixated on the longing in his eyes. As I advanced through needle-strewn Union Square, a rangy, black-clad dope dealer who didn't look like my look stalked me out of the park, hurling threats. Such brushes were common enough downtown, but I usually went unnoticed, skulking through uptown. So it jolted me out of my solitude to hear my name being yelled over the din of traffic. Dale, Dale, over here, hurry. I didn't recognize the voice. Why would anyone yell my name? I wondered as I turned back and scanned in its direction. It seemed to emanate from a stopped car. Behind it, backed up taxi drivers jabbed at their horns. No one I know would do this. I scrambled towards the voice, running between cars to find a navy blue Jaguar, smack in the middle of the avenue, a hand waving frantically out of the open rear window. Behind the steering wheel sat a man with a brushy mustache and a chauffeur's cap, wearily gesturing to the hacks to go round. In the back seat sat Andres, my recently moved in roommate, and an older man. Andres had responded to a notice I'd posted in the school's housing office. My walk-up was cheap enough, but cutting my rent in half would leave me with some spending money. Andres had arrived wearing a striped jacket and a bright scarf with cash in hand. From Chile, he'd grown up in the Detroit suburbs. He was stylish, outgoing, and obviously gay, whereas I was a sexually confused loner. I wanted this handsome dandy in my life to counteract my moody self-absorption and a provincial caste I couldn't seem to shuck. It wasn't so clear to me then, but I was inviting change into the narrow life I'd carved out for myself, more than trying to save money. Andres had a boyfriend, Joseph, a closeted grad student at Columbia from a wealthy Baltimore family. I imagine it would be hard to stay closeted around Andres. After a fight, Joseph had demanded that Andres move out and dropped him off at my place, like old clothes at a donation box. Joseph, who was running a fever, broke it off with finality right there on my doorstep while I tried not to watch. His tall, lanky frame was nearly buckled by his aggrieved posturing, while Andres, subdued, blinked. As his now ex stomped off, Andres closed the door behind him and rolled his eyes. Are you okay? Oh yeah. Wait, I feel a fever coming on too. Check. He put my hand on his forehead. You do feel warm. Was this hypochondria, heartache, some combo? His hand stayed on mine. Soon after moving in, Andres took off to Spain. He owned a portable easel and painted wherever he traveled. He developed sophisticated techniques and themes even before starting school. I'd gotten in with samples from my high school illustration class. When he was home, he made a lot of international phone calls. He'd yammer on ostentatiously in Spanish, French, and Italian with equal fluidity. I'd taken some high school French, but had only picked up a few phrases of Italian at home. Though my grandparents spoke it, we were pitched towards assimilating into the American mainstream. The more I saw, the more I felt like a starstruck bystander to his extraordinary life from the perch of my own apartment. Andres returned from Spain and detonated his giant suitcase. It was filled to bursting with books, clothes, medications, toiletries, liquor, and flattened auto parts he'd found on roadbeds. He'd ink these and pull prints from them, acing his printmaking class. As he sorted through his acquisitions, I'd wonder where he'd gotten the money to travel like this. He told me he was living on a student loan. He spent very few nights at home, even when he was in town. Some days he'd just run in, change into some new outfit, and run right back out. I was still in starstruck mode the day he stopped traffic on Fifth. I thought you two should meet. Mr. Greet, this is Dale. Seated next to Andres was an exasperated older man, large and pink, with wisps of thin blonde hair and bright blue eyes. Dressed in a suit and tie, I noticed the garters holding up his stocks. He had uptown poise and the rosy front of a seasoned drinker. We shook hands through the open window. We're having dinner at El Internacional, you know, in Tribeca, said Andres. I didn't know. Greet muttered something about their reservation and ordered the driver on. The hacks stomped on their gas pedals and a lurching yellow blur accompanied the Jaguar downtown. Thank you.